Qwant accuses Microsoft. Search result manipulation explained. French search engine Qwant has filed a formal complaint with France's antitrust regulator alleging that Microsoft deliberately degraded the quality of search results delivered through its Bing platform. Microsoft's role in B2B search syndication presents a critical but under-regulated point of leverage, said Sanchit Gogia, chief analyst and CEO at Greyhound Research. Through Bing APIs and Microsoft advertising, it becomes the spine of monetization and results delivery for privacy-focused rivals. This is not classical consumer market dominance, it's infrastructural gatekeeping. The technical nature of the allegations makes proving wrongdoing particularly challenging. Microsoft can modulate the quality of search results it delivers to syndication partners via Bing APIs through result latency, index scope, or algorithmic relevance. But proving such selective degradation is a regulatory minefield, Gogia noted. The Qwant Ecosia index is less about competitive parity and more about narrative control, Gogia observed. Until the index is robust enough to fully replace Bing and Google results, both technically and commercially, the initiative functions as a complement rather than a replacement. However, the complex technical nature of the allegations presents unique challenges for regulators. The evidentiary bar remains high, Gogia noted. Unlike pricing abuse, degradation of service in digital syndication manifests in subtler ways. Reduced index depth, slower query responses, or unexplainable result variance. These are difficult to benchmark externally and even harder to attribute with certainty. As quoted in computerworld.com, in an article authored by Gyana Swain published on June 4, 2025, beyond the media quote, our view in full. Press for time? You can focus solely on the Greyhound flashpoints that follow. Each one distills the full analysis into a sharp, executive-ready takeaway, combining our official standpoint, validated through pulse data from ongoing CXO trackers, and grounded in field notes from real-world advisory engagements. Microsoft's quiet syndication power poses structural risk for European search autonomy. Greyhound Flashpoint. Microsoft's share of global consumer search may sit at a modest 3 to 4%, but its influence in Europe runs deeper. It quietly underpins multiple alternative search engines, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, and until recently, Qwant, via Bing's syndication model. Per the Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 62% of digital leaders in France identify infrastructure layer dependencies on U.S. platforms as a strategic concern for digital autonomy. This case isn't about a dominant search brand. It's about a dominant protocol. Qwant's antitrust action surfaces an uncomfortable truth. In Europe's mission to reclaim digital sovereignty, syndication is the soft underbelly. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, Microsoft's role in B2B search syndication present a critical but under-regulated point of leverage. Through Bing APIs and Microsoft advertising, it becomes the spine of monetization and results delivery for privacy-focused rivals. This is not classical consumer market dominance. It's infrastructural gatekeeping. The real asymmetry lies in the technical and commercial terms of access, where Microsoft retains visibility and control while partners operate in a black box. In sovereignty-driven regions like Europe, this bottleneck undermines ambitions for independent digital public services and homegrown alternatives. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 reveals that 68% of public sector CIOs in France and Germany are reassessing partnerships involving third-party infrastructure for citizen-facing applications. Notably, 54% ranks syndicated search and maps as strategic vulnerabilities due to limited transparency and jurisdictional misalignment. This sentiment is echoed in independent industry surveys, where over 60% of European IT leaders favor reducing reliance on US-based platforms for security and compliance reasons. For many, this is not a protest against performance. It's a recalibration of power. Greyhound Field Note. Per a recent Greyhound Field Note from a digital infrastructure audit in a national public services agency, Analyst discovered that their front-end civic portal used syndicated search results over which they had no jurisdictional or diagnostic control. When latency and index gaps emerged, especially in regional language datasets, remediation was stalled by the lack of SLA clarity from the upstream provider. This friction delayed citizen self-service rollout timelines. Such cases reflect a recurring pattern across EU markets. Sovereign aspirations blocked not by ideology, but by invisible dependencies baked into critical digital layers. Microsoft could throttle syndication partners, but proving it will be difficult. Greyhound Flashpoint. Technically, Microsoft can modulate the quality of search results it delivers to syndication partners via Bing APIs through result latency, index scope, or algorithmic relevance. But proving such selective degradation is a regulatory minefield. The French Competition Authority is now probing allegations from Qwant, but the evidentiary bar remains high. Per the Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 53% of European CTOs now demand explainability clauses in third-party syndication contracts. As digital infrastructure becomes less visible and more interlinked, the burden of proof shifts from policy to protocol. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, the Qwant complaint opens a precedent-setting debate. What constitutes fair syndication in the age of algorithmic dependency? Unlike pricing abuse, degradation of service in digital syndication manifests in subtler ways. Reduced index depth, slower query responses, or unexplainable result variance. These are difficult to benchmark externally and even harder to attribute with certainty. Microsoft maintains full control over the delivery stack and retains the telemetry to monitor quality, while partners operate with limited observability. Unless legal standards evolve to require independent auditability of such APIs, complaints like Qwant's risk falling short of enforceability, even if technically plausible. Greyhound Pulse. Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 data indicates that 49% of CIOs across France, the Netherlands, and Belgium have introduced third-party code verification or external monitoring tools to benchmark the stability and fairness of digital infrastructure contracts. Among regulated entities, 44% said lack of technical transparency in algorithmic services has delayed at least one major vendor decision in the past 12 months. These concerns are no longer niche, they shape procurement. Regulatory shifts like the EU Digital Markets Act are beginning to raise the bar, but enforcement in syndication-specific gray zones remains emergent. Greyhound Field Note. Per a recent Greyhound Field Note from a regional telecom operator, an internal migration to a search-powered self-care interface stalled when user testing flagged inconsistent output relevance. Post-mortem analysis revealed the results originated from a syndicated API, with no partner-side visibility into what subset of the index was being queried. Technical teams were unable to verify whether this was a capacity issue, a policy throttle, or an algorithmic anomaly. Regardless of cause, the project was temporarily paused, costing both time and internal credibility. This episode underscores how technical opacity in API syndication can masquerade as execution failure on the client side. Qwant Accuses index signals a bold shift, but not a break from big tech yet. Greyhound Flashpoint. The Qwant Accuses joint initiative to build a European search index is a landmark moment in Europe's digital sovereignty narrative. But despite the optics of independence, both engines will continue using Bing and Google data for now. Per Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 66% of European digital leaders support sovereign tech projects in principle, yet only 29% believe current alternatives can scale without US platform reliance. The index is a signal of intent, not yet a substitute for big tech infrastructure. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, the Qwant Accuses index is less about competitive parity and more about narrative control. By jointly investing in a shared European index, the two firms are seeding a decentralized knowledge infrastructure, one built for transparency, language diversity, and open integration. However, this project is in early stages, starting with French and German language coverage. Until the index is robust enough to fully replace Bing and Google results, both technically and commercially, the initiative functions as a complement rather than a replacement. Its success will depend not just on infrastructure execution, but on attracting wider public, regulatory, and commercial adoption. Greyhound Pulse. The Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 reveals that only 17% of EU-based CIOs currently operate with a fully sovereign digital stack. Among those that attempted to implement sovereign search or identity layers, 82% reported continued reliance on US partners for advanced features like AI-based ranking or ad monetization. Even among pro-sovereignty CIOs, the most cited blocker was insufficient depth and performance of local search alternatives. This confirms the strategic appetite, but also the operational headwinds facing independent search efforts. Greyhound Field Note. Per a recent Greyhound Field Note from a localization audit within a public sector-led information portal, teams evaluated integrating a non-US search backend for internal documentation queries. While early tests of a European-built index showed promise on simple queries, complex document retrieval, PDF metadata, and cross-lingual support yielded inconsistent results. Ultimately, the deployment was deferred until coverage maturity could be assured. This case reflects a common pattern. Enterprises are willing to back sovereign tools, but not at the cost of user experience.
especially when core search reliability is at stake. Analyst in focus, Sanchit Gogia. Sanchit Gogia, or SVG as he is popularly known, is a globally recognized technology analyst, innovation strategist, digital consultant, and board advisor. SVG is the chief analyst, founder and CEO of Greyhound Research, a global, award-winning technology research, advisory, consulting, and education firm. Greyhound Research works closely with global organizations, their CXOs, and the board of directors on technology and digital transformation decisions. SVG is also the founder and CEO of the House of Greyhound, an eclectic venture focusing on interdisciplinary innovation. Copyright policy. All content contained on the Greyhound Research website is protected by copyright law and may not be reproduced, distributed, transmitted, displayed, published, or broadcast without the prior written permission of Greyhound Research or, in the case of third-party materials, the prior written consent of the copyright owner of that content. You may not alter, delete, obscure, or conceal any trademark, copyright, or other notice appearing in any Greyhound Research content. We request our readers not to copy Greyhound Research content and not republish or redistribute them, in whole or partially, via emails or republishing them in any media, including websites, newsletters, or intranets. We understand that you may want to share this content with others, so we've added tools under each content piece that allow you to share the content. If you have any questions, please get in touch with our community relations team at connect@thofper.com.